Hi, welcome to The Mind, where we all are looking to grow one day at a time. Today we will be starting Chapter 7 of The E-Myth Revisited by Michael E. Gerber. Chapter 7, The Turnkey Revolution. Systems theory looks at the world in terms of the interrelatedness of all phenomena, and in this framework, an integrated whole whose properties cannot be reduced to those of its parts is called a system. By Fritjof Capra, The Turning Point. The Industrial Revolution, the Technological Revolution, the Information Explosion are all familiar phenomena in today's world. There is no question of the impact each has had on our lives. If asked to describe the turnkey revolution, however, most people would simply respond with a blank stare. Yet the impact of the turnkey revolution on American small business, and the inferences we can draw about that impact for the future, are as profound as any of the phenomena cited above. For at the heart of the turnkey revolution is a way of doing business that has the power to dramatically transform any small business, indeed any business no matter what its size, from a condition of chaos and disease to a condition of order, excitement, and continuous growth. It is the turnkey revolution that provides us with that elusive key to the development of an extraordinary business, the ultimately balanced model of a business that works, the franchise phenomenon. It all started in 1952 when a 52-year-old salesman walked into a hamburger stand in San Bernardino, California, to sell the two brothers who owned it a milkshake machine. What he saw there was a miracle. At least that's how Ray Kroc, the milkshake machine salesman, might have described it. For he had never seen anything like that very first McDonald's, later to become McDonald's, hamburger stand. It worked like a Swiss watch. Hamburgers were produced in a way he'd never seen before, quickly, efficiently, inexpensively, and identically. Best of all, anyone could do it. He watched high school kids working with precision under the supervision of the owners, happily responding to the long lines of customers queued up in front of the stand. It became apparent to Ray Kroc that what the McDonald brothers had created was not just another hamburger stand, but a money machine. Soon after that first visit, and possessed by a passion he had never felt quite like that before, Ray Kroc convinced Mac and Jim McDonald to let him franchise their method. 12 years and several million hamburgers later, he bought them out and went on to create the largest retail-prepared food distribution system in the world. The most successful small business in the world. That's what McDonald's calls itself today, and for good reason. Because the success of McDonald's is truly staggering. Think about it. In less than 40 years, Ray Kroc's McDonald's has become a $40 billion a year business with 28,707 restaurants worldwide and growing in number every minute, serving food to more than 43 million people every day in 120 countries, representing more than 10% of the gross restaurant receipts in America. The average McDonald's restaurant produces more than $2 million in annual sales and is more profitable than almost any other retail business in the world, with an average 17% pre-tax net profit. But Ray Kroc created much more than just a fantastically successful business. He created the model upon which an entire generation of entrepreneurs have since built their fortunes, a model that was the genesis of the franchise phenomenon. It started as a trickle when a few entrepreneurs began to experiment with Kroc's formula for success, but it wasn't long before the trickle turned into Niagara Falls. In 2000, there were 320,000 franchised businesses in 75 industries. Franchises produce $1 trillion in sales each year, almost 50% of every retail dollar spent in the nation, and had more than 8 million full and part-time people, the largest employer of high school youth in the country's economy. But the genius of McDonald's isn't franchising itself. The franchise has been around for more than 100 years. Many companies, Coca-Cola and General Motors among them, have utilized franchising as an effective method of distribution to reach broadly expanding markets inexpensively. The true genius of Ray Kroc's McDonald's is the business format franchise. It is the business format franchise that has revolutionized American business. It is the business format franchise, with one new franchise opening its doors every 8 minutes of every single business day, that has spawned so much of the success of the franchise phenomenon over the past 40 years. And according to studies conducted by the U.S. Commerce Department from 1971 to 1987, Less than 5% of franchises have been terminated on an annual basis, or 25% in 5 years. Compare that statistic to the more than 80% failure rate of independently owned businesses, and you can immediately understand the power of the turnkey revolution in our economy and the contribution that the business format franchise has made to it and the future success of your business. Turning the key, the business format franchise. The early franchise businesses, many of which still exist, were called trade name franchises. Under this system, the franchisor licenses the right to small companies to market its nationally known products locally. But the business format franchise moves a step beyond the trade name franchise. The business format franchise not only lends its name to the smaller enterprise, but it also provides the franchisee with an entire system of doing business. And in that difference lies the true significance of the turnkey revolution and its phenomenal success. The turnkey revolution and the business format franchise were born of a belief that runs counter to what most business founders in this country believe. Most business founders believe that the success of a business resides in the success of the product it sells. To the trade name franchisor, the value of the franchise lies in the value of the brand name that it is licensing: Cadillac, Mercedes, Coca-Cola. There was a time when that belief was true, but it isn't anymore. In a world where brand names proliferate like snowflakes in a Minnesota blizzard, it becomes more and more difficult and infinitely more expensive to establish a secure position with a brand name and expect to keep it. As a result, trade name franchises have been declining over the same period that franchising in general has been exploding at an unprecedented rate. It is the business format franchise that has accounted for that growth. Because the business format franchise is built on the belief that the true product of a business is not what it sells, but how it sells it. The true product of a business is the business itself. What Ray Kroc understood at McDonald's was that the hamburger wasn't his product. McDonald's was, and he believed that for a most important reason: selling the business instead of the product. Ray Kroc was the consummate entrepreneur, and like most entrepreneurs, he suffered from one major liability. He had a huge dream and very little money. Enter the franchisee. The franchisee became the vehicle for Ray Kroc to realize his dream. At that point, Ray Kroc began to look at his business as the product and at the franchisee as his first, last, and most important customer. For the franchisee wasn't interested in hamburgers or French fries or milkshakes. He was interested in the business. Driven by his desire to buy a business, the franchisee only wanted to know one thing: does it work? Ray Kroc's most important concern then became how to make certain his business would work better than any other. If McDonald's was to fulfill the dream he had for it, the franchisee would have to be willing to buy it. And the only way Ray Kroc could assure himself of that was to make certain that McDonald's worked better than any of the other business products around. At the outset, Ray Kroc wasn't just competing with other hamburger businesses, he was competing with every other business opportunity around. But there was a second reason that Ray Kroc had for making certain McDonald's would work. Given the failure rate of most small businesses, he must have realized a crucial fact. For McDonald's to be a predictable success, the business would have to work, because the franchisee, if left to his own devices, most assuredly wouldn't. Once he understood this, Ray Kroc's problem became his opportunity. Forced to create a business that worked in order to sell it, he also created a business that would work once it was sold, no matter who bought it. Armed with that realization, he set about the task of creating a foolproof, predictable business, a systems-dependent business, not a people-dependent business, a business that could work without him. Unlike most small business owners before him, and since, Ray Kroc went to work on his business, not in it. He began to think about his business like an engineer working on a pre-production prototype of a mass-producible product. He began to re-engineer McDonald's decades before the word and the process came into fashion. He began to think about McDonald's just like Henry Ford must have thought about the Model T. How could the components of the prototype be constructed so that it could be assembled at a very low cost with totally interchangeable parts? How could the components be constructed so that the resulting business system could be replicated over and over again, each business working, just like the Model T, as reliably as the thousands that preceded it? What Ray Kroc did was to apply the thinking behind the Industrial Revolution to the process of business development, and to a degree never before experienced in a business enterprise. The business as a product would only sell if it worked, and the only way to make certain it would work in the hands of a franchisee anywhere in the world would be to build it out of perfectly predictable components that could be tested in a prototype long before ever going into mass production. Therein lies the secret behind the stunning success of the business format franchise, the launching pad for the turnkey revolution. That secret is the franchise prototype. It is in the franchise prototype that every successful franchisor builds his future. It is in the franchise prototype that every extraordinary franchisor plants the seeds of his fortune. And it is in the franchise prototype that you can find the model you need to make your business work. Sarah and I couldn't have picked a better time to have this conversation. If she had ever felt the weight of being a technician turned business owner caught up in the doing of her business and the inordinate price she was paying for it, it was right now. It was 10 o'clock at night. As usual, she had had a tumultuous day. Her face was flush with the exertion of mopping the floors, bundling and tossing out the trash, preparing the ovens for the next day, cleaning the counters to their original high luster, in addition to a full day of waiting on customers, serving up pie, coffee, and tea, washing, drying, and stacking plates, cups, saucers, and shining the silver. And yet, with all that had gone on in the shop that day, you couldn't have known it, for, as always, the shop was impeccable. And despite the cost to her of keeping it that way, I couldn't help but notice the deep satisfaction Sarah felt as she surveyed her domain, but she was obviously tired. We pulled 2 chairs up to a table and quietly sipped the tea she had prepared for us. The large clock ticked emphatically on the wall, punctuating our silence. An occasional car drove by the shop. People walked by. The shop's windows occasionally looking into the shop as they continued on their journey into the night. I waited for a sign from Sarah that she was ready. Finally, she began thoughtfully and quietly. "You talk about McDonald's as an example to be modeled. I'm not sure I agree with you about that. I know if my aunt were here today, she would think of McDonald's as exactly the opposite of what you've suggested it is. Talk to me about that," she said. "I'm interested in how you would respond to my aunt, about what you would say to her." "You know, Sarah," I began, "I can sense that something has shifted in you today, something important. I can sense also from the tone of your question that you're truly interested in pursuing this question about McDonald's, and I'm inspired to engage in the question with you at the deepest level. I want to thank you for that. It's true, many small business owners at first misunderstand my point about McDonald's. They associate fast food with low quality. They infer then that by setting McDonald's up as an example, I'm suggesting that one can be incredibly successful in business despite the seemingly low quality of the product delivered. When exactly the opposite is true, but let me get back to that in a moment. As for your aunt, even though I have never met her, from the way you have described her, I feel I know her, and this is what I would say to her if she were here asking me the question herself. I would say that Ray Kroc was a man with a purpose. His purpose was clear, undiluted, and sure. He lived in an ordinary world, like we all do, a world in which most things didn't work the way they were supposed to. At McDonald's, he saw something that did work, exactly as it was supposed to, time after time after time. To Ray Kroc, that was an inspiration. In fact, he was awed by it. He was a simple man, and he fell in love with the sheer enormity of the thing he called McDonald's. As certainly as you loved baking pies, Ray Kroc loved making McDonald's. As certainly as you loved producing an exceptional pie, Ray Kroc loved producing an exceptional result. The same way, with the same impact, time after time. As certainly as you loved the aroma, the smells, the sight, the taste of your kitchen, Ray Kroc loved the aroma, the smells, the sight, the taste of McDonald's. He was a man in love. Now, from the outside in, I can understand why you might be critical of McDonald's. You might say that people shouldn't eat meat. You might say that the hamburgers could be fatter or less fatty or this or that. But what you couldn't say, what you could never say, is that McDonald's doesn't keep its promise, because it does. Better than just about any business in the world, McDonald's, the love of Ray Kroc's life, still keeps its promise, long after Ray Kroc has gone. It delivers exactly what we have come to expect of it every single time. So that's why I look upon McDonald's as a model for every small business, because it can do in its more than 28,000 stores what most of us can't do in one. And to me, that's what integrity is all about. It's about doing what you say you will do, and if you can't, learning how. If that is the measure of an incredible business, and I believe it is, then there is no more incredible business than McDonald's. Who among us small business owners can say we do things as well? But McDonald's is even more important than that. McDonald's has not only created an extraordinary business, it has created for all of us small business owners an extraordinary way to create an extraordinary business. It has created a model we can emulate, and the profound impact that that has had on our economy over the past 4 decades is beyond our comprehension. So, Sarah's aunt, I honestly believe if you had known Ray Kroc, you would have discovered in him a kindred spirit. You would have invited him into your kitchen, and he would have invited you into his. You would have discussed with him with great passion the art of creating a fine pie crust, and he would have discussed with you, with just as great a passion, the art of creating a fine French fry. You would have shared with him your secret for preparing the fruit, just as he would share with you his secret for preparing the hamburger buns he so lovingly devoted himself to. You are two peas in a pod with one big exception. You, Sarah's aunt, had but one kitchen in which you loved to work, your kitchen, making your pies, alone, or with Sarah by your side. Ray Kroc had thousands of kitchens in which he loved to work, perfecting all the time his ability to touch millions of people with the same loving attention you've lavished on a few. You are a technician, a craftsperson who loves what you do. He was an entrepreneur, albeit still a craftsperson who loved what he did. The only difference between the two of you is an order of magnitude. So let me tell you how he crafted something that size.